Welcome to Salaam Nerds Podcast. We do reviews and recaps of your favorite TV shows, movies, and current events.
Yo, it's the Salaam Nerds. My name is Steve, aka Watch the News. I'm here with my boy Chad.
We drop live episodes on YouTube on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Thank you to all our supporters. Please help us by subscribing and leaving a good review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. All episodes can also be found everywhere podcasts are found.
Yo, Salaam Nerds. It's your boy Neves, aka Watchman Neves, and I am here with my main man, Arazi. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
What's up, man? Doing okay. Feeling pretty good.
Listen, we did not get to do a few episodes of The Last of Us. We did episode 1, we did episode 2, and then we kind of went on a little bit of hiatus. I had some stuff going on, and our boy right here just, you want to tell people what happened?
Yep.
Look at that.
I'm a doctor of law. I am officially
a doctor of law. Now all you gotta do is pass the bar exam.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So, if someone says, is there a doctor in the house? I say, yes, but I cannot perform any operation or any medical safety situation.
That's good. Well, hopefully you pass the bar soon. As a Muslim, I pass the bar all the time. And just don't drink. Oh, man. All right. Well, let's talk about what we're here to talk about. And that is season 2 of The Last of Us. Now, this show has been interesting, and I feel like season 2, so we're going to talk about episode 3-7. We're going to talk about everything that kind of happened, and we're going to talk about how we feel about the entire season to begin with. And I did finish the game, so super exciting, super fun. Lots of things that I did not expect. There's a lot of things I think the game did better. There's a lot of things I think the show did better, so I'm really excited to talk about it. What were your overall thoughts of season 2?
Overall thoughts, I love the expanding universe. I love the introduction of the characters. I felt like they really were true to the characters in the game, like in every way, shape, and form. Like,
right.
I was like, yeah, that is our Jesse, that is our Dina. Dina hit it out the park. I love spending more time with Tommy. And then I think as someone who has also played the game, right? I kind of wish we got the whole story, but I am greedy like that. So I guess we'll just have to wait.
It did feel like we got you, and I know like season 3 is going to be all about Abby, but I think there could have been a little bit more things dropped in there. It did feel a little incomplete. There's a few things that they kind of chose to do where I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. And then there are a few things I think they did a good job with. A lot of things that I feel like they did a good job with. But let's go through the show and we'll talk about it. So in episode 3, Joel, he is dead. And he is super dead. And Ellie wakes up in a hospital. She's screaming. We do find out that Jackson won the little battle. This battle, like, when I thought in episode 2, I was like, this is amazing. This is so cool. I'm glad that they added this, and it was so cool to see, and it added an extra layer of danger to that episode and what's happening with Joel and stuff. But then they kind of just like, it was a one-off. Like, it never had any like, effects to the town after that. We kind of just like move on from it. And I kind of was like, oh, I wish we would have gotten a little bit more. Like, I guess it did make sense because it did help the storyline about like why they did not send people to go and fight and do this thing, and because the resources were scarce, and I get that, but it was kind of just like, oh cool, this whole thing happened, and then like, oh, that's where the budget went. Like, it kind of felt like the show kind of started to slow down a little bit and drag down a little bit in terms of like production and stuff. So I thought that was a little interesting. But I did like Ellie's like speech to the whole town and the council. Like, that stuff wasn't in the game. That was really cool to see. And you get this really cool scene where like the guy who's, a bigot who does not like Ellie and his girlfriend was the one defending them and saying, "Hey, we should go and fight them, and we should go and do this." And we see him in later in the scene to be the one supplying them with resources, where in the game is actually Maria who's supplying them with resources. And I thought that deviation was actually really cool. I actually liked that deviation better. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I think it was really good that they built out the town in a way that really made it feel like a community. Whereas, like when you're playing the game, you're just literally passing through, getting your
Right.
horse, doing your rounds, if you will. But I like kind of the added layer of depth that we're getting here that we you couldn't get in the game.
Yeah. But you also do get like a lot of scenes that are like scene for scene from the game, like when she goes into
Totally.
Joel's house and gets the gun, and like,
Hmm.
so you get a little
Yeah,
bit of both. You get a little bit of
you
everything. You
do.
get that like feel of like, oh, this is just like the game, and then also like, oh, this is
Hmm.
very different from the game. So
Sure.
like, there are parts of it where you're like, it gives you that nostalgia from the game, but it also gives
Mhm.
you that, oh, they're expanding it. They're adding more layers to that, and I really do like that. So we kind of do see this 3 months later. Dina shows up downstairs. Where in the game, it's actually Maria who shows up downstairs, and Dina's like, "Listen, I didn't tell anybody this, but I know everything. I know their
Mm,
names. I know what they look like. I know where they're going, and I know what organization they work for." And over here, Ellie's like, "We lost so much time," and Dina's like,
yeah,
"Listen, if you're going to follow, if you know where somebody is, the better idea is to let them get there and then get there." Which I was like, damn, Dina is smart as hell. So I really
yeah,
did like that thing. So Dina and Ellie go out to find these people, but in the game it's very different because it's actually Tommy who goes out to find these
exactly.
people, and they
And
try
he
to
goes
catch up
along.
with Tommy. So
Exactly.
when I'm watching this, I'm like, it's a big deviation, and there's like this fear that like, wait, Tommy plays a big role later on. Is he not going to be there? And
Yeah.
that kind of was like, oh, I don't know what's going on. They're making these choices, but like we do get that at the very end where it's like, okay, no, it makes sense. I thought that was pretty interesting. What are your thoughts about like them not having Tommy and Jesse go out there?
I was wondering that about that as well. I was like, how are they going to make it work? Because it is he does play such a pivotal role in
Right.
the story, and he kind of plays the in a way a void that Joel has now left with his absence. So as kind of like the father
Yeah.
figure, mentor. So yeah, but I mean, I think it's worked now that we've seen kind of this season in total. I
Yeah.
think it does work. The choices that they made work. There's some other things that I'm sure we'll talk about of
Yeah.
like which directions that they went.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Another thing
But I
we're
do.
introduced. Oh, good.
Oh, I was just gonna say I did kind of like the. I don't know if we talked about this last time, but almost like the um, Islamic burial of with well, I mean, it was kind of like the cleansing of
Oh
Joel
yeah, the
when
washing
he
of
died, right? The
the
washing
body.
the
Yeah.
body, right? I thought that was really good and kind of the one man wake.
Yeah.
And you know how he said kind of had his own moment to say goodbye, and that was pretty emotional and touching.
Yeah, and he
So
says like, "Give my love to Sarah," which is his
yeah,
daughter.
that's pretty gutting.
Oh,
Yeah,
damn, that
yeah,
was yeah, that gets you.
yeah,
And then they have that close up of the watch, which
yeah,
you see the watch, and I'm like, okay, I get it. And the payoff doesn't come until like episode 6 when you're like, you see the watch and you're like, oh, that's why the watch means so much to him. And I thought that was a great callback. Another thing that
yeah,
I feel like the show has done better than the game
yeah.
is what the reference to the watches. Also, we get to see in this episode the Seraphites, and
Hmm.
who are commonly called the Scars in this. And we see them, and they're like, in this scene, they're like non-violent. They're just walking around. They're just trying to get from one place to another. They talk a little bit about their prophet, and then they just get like run down and completely killed by Vedras.
Yeah,
So it's one of those things where you're like, oh, there's these like levels to like these people now. It's not just like the whatever zombies. What are they called? The scleral pads.
oh, the what
What are
the
they? the infected. I don't know what they're called in
I'm
this
blanking
universe.
on
It's
the
not
name.
called zombie. They're called something else. But the infected, we have them. But then we also have a few more characters that or groups of individuals in this
Cordyceps.
cordyceps. That's what it is.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. So yeah, these Seraphites, they do not use any technology, and they use like
Yep.
whistles to kind of like
Hmm.
communicate with each other. And you see them traveling with their children with them too. But you see later that like the kids get slaughtered, they get they don't leave anyone behind,
Hmm.
and it's this like really sad thing. And we see Dina, who sees it for the first time, that she throws up.
Hmm.
We find out why she throws up later on, but you kind of see these people are just like really, really horrible to these people, and this is where I feel like the show is expanding from season one. It's like, you know, season one was really focused on the infected. Now it's being focused on like these certain groups, and I think that's really, really
Hmm.
interesting. What are your thoughts about the Seraphites and how they
Yeah,
were
I mean
introduced?
they're pretty complicated. I love how they were introduced. I
Yeah,
actually don't remember how they were introduced in the game. I think you probably see like you see the murals around town. You're like,
yeah.
what the
You see the
hell is
murals.
going on?
Yeah, feel her love. You see the
Feel her
murals, and
love.
then one time I think
Totally.
they just show up on horses and start attacking you, and you don't
Yeah.
really know who they are. And then
Oh
slowly,
yeah,
you
that's right. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And
and
then you
then when
see
you go
the studio.
yeah,
Yeah,
then
so
you go
you're
to the
like, oh
TV
my God.
studio, and then you see their guts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where you really, really find out. Um, and in the fourth episode, we kind of get introduced to Isaac,
Yeah.
who is Jeffrey Wright's character. I believe Jeffrey Wright plays him in the game and
He
in
does.
real life, which
He
is
does.
really cool. That's so awesome. I think that's
Just
so
like
cool.
Marlene, you get the
Yeah,
like both actors
yeah,
and act,
that's
playing the
so
same
cool.
character.
Yeah, and then he's in this like armored truck, and they're just like talking about like killing these people. They're probably talking about killing the Seraphites because they were like, oh, they thought they were the wolves, but they actually ended up being some like random religious people, and that they're probably passing out pamphlets. So they're probably talking about the Seraphites, or like maybe like the Seraphites are like the more radical version of like whatever
Yeah,
this religion is, right?
might be the
Uh,
predecessors. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then they're just like talking about them, and this guy and like yeah, and then Greenblatt is oldest, and like they're just talking about humans as they're just animals and there's garbage. And we hear this marine talk in like a lot of war movies, kind of just like the way that like Americans have talked about Vietnam or Iraq and stuff like that. And we kind of see this kind of talk in a lot of these movies, and like people who are in the army, they're like, yeah, that's just how they talk in that. And you can see Jeffrey Wright's character kind of going like kind of disgusted with these people, like the way they're
Hmm.
just like Fedra is really talking about these people. Uh, and while he's telling this story, they ask him like, "Oh, why do you call them voters?" And then he's like, "It's to mock them because they can't vote. They took away their voting rights." And then you kind of get to see like how like cruel this like Fedra faction is, and we get to see Jeffrey Wright go outside to meet this woman, shakes her hand, then tells one of the guys to come out with him because apparently he's the one that was asking questions. So he's like, maybe he's too green or early to be indoctrinated into this like club.
Hmm.
And he takes a grenade and kind of just like blows him up and then shoots the driver. And you can see this is where his turn is. And in the video game, this is not shown. You don't really get his backstory, but you do pick up a letter that somebody reads about like somebody turning on somebody in a van. And I think what they did was they turned that character into Isaac's character. But
It's
what a
pretty
great way
awesome.
to give his like backstory. I thought his backstory was amazing. I thought it was really cool to see the way he turned. But when you see like Fedra, and you see that like they're just like they're kind of like ACAB, like like once you're in that group, you become like them.
Hmm.
So and that's like the process behind ACAB is like all cops are bastards because like hey, not individually, but when you become a cop, you get indoctrinated into this, and you stick up for other bad cops, and you see these guys just mocking and joking about killing all these people, and you see the other guys, everyone's just like in on it. No one wants to stand up and say no. And I think that was like a really interesting way to show like how these people are just like dehumanizing each other. And I
Hmm.
think that's really interesting. And I think that's like the really interesting part about this show because yeah, the infected are the ones that are not humans, but it's really the humans that are dehumanizing each other. I
Yep.
think that's fascinating. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, exactly like how these apocalyptic movies go, but I think they do it in such a great way.
Yeah.
Because you have like the literal breaking down of society, right? You have this one, the people, the voters, if you will, think they have rights, but when in actuality they don't. And then Fedra is, just kind of mocking them in a way that, yeah, we're not going to get back to that, a whole thing called civil rights or whatever
Yeah.
protected rights you may have. We're just going to do things in the name of national security, in the name of safety, and
Yeah.
whatever we decide goes, will go.
Yeah.
But I do love the backstory. I did pick up on that Easter egg, thanks to social media. That was pretty dope, to kind of get
Yeah.
that story for the with the armored vehicle. Because
Yeah.
I remember that in the game, but I don't remember the letters. But it's like a really
Yeah,
nice.
I played it very recently, so that's why I remember it.
It is really
But it's
cool.
cool that we get these things, but it's hard to make sense of it. So you have Fedra, which is like this federal kind of government. They're the ones that set up these quarantine zones everywhere,
Hmm.
right? And then you have WLF, which is kind of like a local militia that is
Exactly.
like going against them. But then you also have Fireflies, which no
Hmm.
longer really exist anymore because Joel killed them all, and they kind of went the remaining Fireflies kind of like joined WLF, right?
Yeah,
And then you have the people in Jackson that are kind of their own thing, and then you have a few other people like Rattlers that are like in some different areas of the country, and there's a few others, and you kind of hear about them. Some you see. But I think it's very, very interesting. Like you have all of these people and how all that stuff works. But like a lot of it, from what I understand, is taken from like real life and inspired by real life and stuff like that. And I think I need to do more research, but I know a lot of it is taken from Israel and Palestine. A lot of it is uh, derived from that. Is what the creator has said about the show. But they
fascinating.
do it
I
in a
didn't know
way
that.
where you don't really have a good guy or a bad guy. Like everyone in this show essentially is a villain, and everyone in this show is divided, except the infected. They're pretty united.
Yeah, we
They're the
want
only
brains.
ones that are like, hey, we're in this together, guys.
Yeah, just give us our brains, please.
Yeah, yeah. Which is
Um,
which is pretty
yeah, I
interesting.
mean, it's funny you mentioned that kind of that yeah, influence because it was a big part of the game, and especially an annoyance that like the way that they kind of structured where you can and can't go were through
Yeah,
checkpoints, federal
yeah,
checkpoints, and I haven't really had any federal checkpoints in the game or in the show, but they're all littered across the game as a way of
yeah.
like, okay, we can go this way, can't open this door, we're gonna go a different way. So, but like it's like you can kind of get a sense of like what things were like then, but also get obviously modern day influences as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also, we find out a few other things in here, which I think are pretty important. So we get to this TV studio, which is
Hmm.
where we find all of these people that are gutted, and the Seraphites have them all like gutted and stuff like that. In the game, this is a really good version to play because there's a lot of cool gameplay in this in this level, which I really do like. But one of the things that the guy says, he goes like, "I can't believe they did this. We need to kill them all, even the babies." And I'm like, "Bro, what's up with these people killing babies? Like, it shows how far gone these people are in these worlds." And I hate the fact that like it does remind you of a lot of the stuff that happened in the real world. It's kind of just like, yeah, how did people become this way?
They're being desensitized, and I think
They get
it's
desensitized, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
I think also like, if I can take like a piece out of the
yeah,
later episode, the finale, the community aspect is really
yeah.
important of building your community and, you know, doing what's right for one another, even if it's like you're going against your own self-interest. So,
Yeah, a lot of that
yeah.
is what they do. So in the scene, they get chased out and they go into the subway, which is probably one of the scariest scenes in the game,
Oh yeah,
where everything
absolutely.
is red and there is
Mhm.
this like level of like danger, which is crazy.
Bro, I
Uh,
died so many
and
times in that level. I cannot tell you how many
yeah,
times I died. And when I saw this, I was like, "Oh no, this is PTSD."
I know, and I really thought they came to the scene pretty quick. I thought they would take a little
They
longer to
did.
get here,
Same,
but it,
same.
it, it came pretty quick. Uh,
But
and
they
this is
nailed it.
where we discover that Ellie is immune, or well, not we discover, but Dina discovers, because like in the
Mhm.
game is very different than here. In here, she sacrifices herself and she gets bit, and then Dina's like,
Yeah.
"Holy crap, you've been bit." In the game, it's a little bit more subtle. What happened is her gas mask is cracked, and she's breathing
Yeah.
in the spores, and she
Mhm.
finds out that like, oh damn, her gas mask is broken, and Dina's like, "Oh, I have to kill you," and she's like, "No, I'm immune," which is like, yeah, that's something anyone would say if they don't want to get shot, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I thought the way they did this was pretty good. They made her wait it out, and she waited out, and turns out she's not. And turns out she is immune, and she's not turning into a zombie, which I thought was pretty interesting. How do you feel about them changing that from the game to the show?
I think the game did it better. I mean, sorry, the show did it better. I I
Really?
I thought it was, like, a really nice twist
Yeah,
and not what we expected.
yeah,
I don't remember how it was in the game. Oh, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
with the gas mask. I thought that was good too. I don't know, they were both really good, man. It's kinda hard
yeah.
to choose. But the other thing, I knew they weren't gonna do the gas mask because they hadn't done spores
No,
at
they
all in
haven't in
the
the
show,
spoilers. They haven't.
until what, episode 5, so,
Yeah, so
like
they haven't told you in the show that there are spores. So like from now all the way back to episode 1, there's never
mhm,
a thing about there being anything airborne. It
yeah,
was like, oh, these things are like connected to the ground, so there's kind of like
mhm,
roots and stuff, but they didn't
yeah.
say anything about airborne, which I do like the fact that they didn't show that, because now when they bring it up, it's like a new discovery instead of it
I
being there
know,
all along. I actually enjoyed that
yeah.
better. I thought that was
I kinda
done better in the show.
Yeah, because yeah, in the game, you, like, constantly put your gas mask on, you take it off,
Yeah,
this and that, like, the visibility, but,
yeah,
like, in the show, it was a nice reveal because it's,
yeah,
like, kinda saving some things
yeah.
for it. Yeah, and for us.
But the thing that I didn't love about the show, they kind of skipped over a lot of the people that Ellie does get to kill, like Jordan,
Yeah,
Nick, and Leia. Like when she goes to the studio, and like where we also find that like Tommy also interrogated people, which like this interrogation strategy we get to learn about in at the end. Um, and we also, at the TV station and all the other places, we meet all these characters along the way. Some of them they already dead, some of them someone killed them, some of them you get to kill. So I thought that could have been stretched out a little bit better, but
yeah,
other than that, I was okay with it. I did like the way the subway scene and everything happened. I did feel like it was squashed together real quick and rushed a little bit, but
mhm,
it was still really cool to see it adapted into like a TV show in real life. It looked
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, it was really
Uh,
cool. I wanted some more time in the subway. I think it was too much of a rush scene. It was very
yeah,
good.
yeah,
But like the part after they go through the actual subway train car and they
yeah.
come out and then they're in the station. I remember the station was the hardest part and
It
I
was
kept
pretty tough.
dying. Like I remember I kept dying because there were clickers and infected everywhere.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean I was hoping you'd have the stakes a little bit higher and then instead you kind of like push a horde. And I think like the horde shouldn't always be the default raising the stakes. I think in
yeah,
the game, the biggest thing was always like just 2 or 3 clickers, man. Like that was
yeah,
something that was even more like frightening to kind of go
yeah.
through than like a horde.
The thing that like I feel like the game does really well and the show does not is that like you have this sense of like your resources are scarce. You don't
Yeah,
have enough bullets.
totally.
You don't have enough weapons. You
Mhm.
don't have enough energy. You don't have enough health.
Gotta
Whereas this is
build.
like
Yeah,
this, you're kind of just like in the old school '90s where like they have unlimited weapon. They're just shooting at a bunch of zombies with a 9 millimeter, and she takes like 12 shots, and it keeps going. She still has a full clip left. Like
yeah,
I feel like they should have done scenes where like they have to run away because they run out of bullets or something like that. Like where because in that subway scene, like you don't have enough bullets to kill all these people. You have in some scenes you literally have to run away. You can't kill everybody in the scene, and you
exactly.
learn that the hard way. Like you keep dying and dying, and then you realize, oh, you're never meant to kill everyone in this scene. You're meant to run away. So
Yeah.
it's one of
I
those scenes where like you learn about it after you trial and error.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think, like, it took me so many tries to just, like, end up
Yeah,
sneaking through, but I think also you have, like, the shanks, you only have, like, 2 or 3, uses for them, and then you also like, I remember, I think it was episode 1 or 2 where, Ellie is by her work table, and I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
they're gonna, like, show how she, like, builds her own guns," and,
yeah.
I mean, essentially, you're just cleaning it, but I think, like, there's something to be said there about, like, giving a little bit more credence to this kind of scarcity of resources, because that's, like, how the world would
Works.
be
Yeah,
in a
yeah, yeah.
situation like this, right? So
Yeah, I totally agree. So, in episode 5, it starts off with the conversation between this woman. I think her name is like Hannah Hannerham, and then another woman named Park, and
mhm.
she's like trying to figure out why she killed her own team. And she goes, "Yeah, I
Mm,
killed my own team and Leon." And I was like, "All right, what does that mean?" And we find out later that Leon was the one who discovered that, hey, downstairs on these floors, it's in the air. You have to lock it up.
yeah,
And you're like, oh, damn, okay, cool. Like, Leon did something brave. And then you find out Leon was actually her son. And you're like, damn,
yeah,
that's crazy.
that's
This
pretty
is not in
crazy.
the game. This was
No, it's not.
added on.
I liked it. It was a good ad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good ad, yeah, and it's a
It was like,
good way to reveal it, and then also to
yeah.
come back to it.
Yeah, and it was a cold opener too. It was the opening for this episode, and I was just like, "Damn, these two women just gave like a phenomenal performance in just like a 5 minute scene." I thought they did such a great job.
Yeah.
And then we go back to Ellie, and she's like finds this guitar, and she's like
Ah,
playing Pearl Jam and stuff like that. Which I think is really. I love the fact when she gets the
and aha,
humidifiers that she's like,
yeah,
oh yes, the humidifiers, and like you
yeah,
understand, like yeah, like these things haven't been touched in years. That's actually what kept it in good condition, whereas the rest didn't. I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah,
yeah,
she
yeah,
sings "Aha," "Take on Me," Pearl Jam, and these songs are actually played in the game. You can
totally.
actually play them in the game. Like if you, I think you pick the chord and you actually strum it on the PS5 controller, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it was pretty
Uh,
cool.
yeah, and then we get a little bit of Dina's backstory in this one because I don't think we get Dina's backstory in the game, or maybe it's a little different. But she was 8 years old when she had her first kill, and it was somebody with a raider who came in and killed her mother and sister. In the game, I believe her sister is a little bit more in her life. I believe like her sister dies much later on because I think her sister teaches her. I remember when they're in the synagogue, she talks about her Jewish faith, and she talks about her sister and how she taught her
Mm,
all this stuff. So she had
yeah,
more of a relationship with her sister in the game. I think her sister was around longer, but
a
in
little longer,
here,
yeah,
her sister dies a bit earlier.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they changed that, and then they also tell Ellie like, "Oh, yeah, tell me the first kill you had." She's like, "No, I'll tell you the second one." And you remember the first one was her friend in the arcade, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's the one where they both thought they were gonna
yeah,
turn, and she didn't turn."
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was
man, I forgot about that one. I forgot that was the first one. That sucked.
yeah. So they try to get to where the people are, and they have to go through this factory. And they're like, "Why is nobody going through this factory?" And they're like, "Yeah, girl, you're gonna find out." So apparently,
Yeah,
the smart stalkers are there who like trick you and
mhm,
lure you and attack in like herds, and they're trying to survive through this factory. And I'm watching this episode. I'm like, "There's no way they're getting out of this," because like how are they getting out of here? And then you see Jesse come and save them, which does happen in the game, but happens very
yeah,
differently. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
was like, oh yeah, because in the game, she's getting swarmed by wolf people, and they're everywhere, and you're trying to kill these wolf people. And this is one of another level where you're just like, it's impossible to kill everybody, and you just jump over this ledge, and then somebody comes and grab you from behind, and it's Jesse, right?
mm,
They changed that from the game to being in this factory with the clickers, which I didn't mind. I was like, all right, whatever. It's doing the same thing. They need to introduce how Jesse gets there. So they do this,
it,
then they go through the park. Again, we get introduced to the Seraphites again. We see Dina gets hit with the arrow through her leg, and Jesse takes her. Ellie go through another way, and then we get the scene at the hospital.
Hospital.
and with
Yeah.
Nora, which I thought was a good scene, right out of the game, word
So
for
good.
word. She's
Word for
like
word. Exactly.
luring her in and saying, "Oh man, I still think about what happened to him, and he got what he deserved." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And like, I think that's really interesting because when you really do think about it, Joel kind of did get what he deserves. Like he killed a lot of people, a lot of innocent people too,
Bro,
unarmed
Pedro's
doctors and
our
nurses and physician's assistants and medical assistants. He killed them all. He did not do a good thing, and I get that. Um, but then I love the scene where he like chases Nora down there,
yeah,
and you have this scene with the air, and Nora's like, "You killed us all because of the air," and that's when she slowly realizes that, oh shit, she's the immune girl. I thought you
yeah,
were like a fairy tale. I didn't think you were real. Turns out
yeah,
you were. But then she tells Ellie everything that Joel did, and she's like, "I know."
yeah.
And at this point, we don't know. Is she bluffing? Is she saying she knows, or does she actually know? And I thought that was really, really interesting. What were you thinking when you watched that? Because like in the game, you get these flashbacks, but I didn't know if the show was going to do that. What were your thoughts about that?
I don't remember the flashbacks of this, but I do remember beating the crap out of her. And
Yeah,
it was like pretty hard to watch.
yeah,
I also think that like just one quick aside, like when Jesse came and saved Ellie, it was
yeah.
so similar how Joel saved Abby at the beginning of the game, beginning of the
Oh
show.
yeah, same type of
Like
scene. Yeah, you're
almost
right.
exactly the same. So
Yeah,
yeah, with Ellie and Nora in the hospital, I mean, like it was pretty brutal to watch. I mean, my wife turned away. She's like, I can't
yeah,
watch this. And then I was like, damn, like they are going there. And then it did cut to black, and I was because obviously they're like, yeah, you know what's going down.
you know what's gonna
Um,
happen. Yeah,
so yeah, but I mean, it's like carbon copy from the game, which I love.
yeah, yeah. But she did learn that, like, hey, Joel killed Abby's father, and you're kind of
Yeah,
like, you
she's like,
learn that their crusade is not as righteous as they think it is.
yeah, yeah, and
And
she's like, I don't care.
she's like, I don't care. But when
Yeah,
they go back to the theater and she takes off her clothes and Dina is like washing her off and stuff like that, which is
mhm,
exactly from the game.
yeah,
Which I feel like the game did this scene a lot better than the show
I
did.
agree. I agree.
I feel like they kind of like went through it really
The
fast and
whole thing was
she didn't have any
better, and
blood on her, any of that stuff.
mhm,
Um, but like Ellie had no remorse. She's kind of like it
yeah,
was so easy to kill it, whereas in the
yeah,
game it was a little bit more nuanced. What are your thoughts about that?
yeah. I think the game did a better job at
Yeah,
just kind of like having you sit with it a
yeah,
little longer and like not it, just not it feeling a little icky. Um,
yeah,
and because when Dina reacted the way that she did,
yeah,
because it was rushed, it didn't seem like genuine. So my
yeah,
wife was even like, "What's going on here?" My wife
yeah,
picks up on these things pretty easily, so she's so she's like, "This doesn't make sense."
yeah. And she hasn't played
Um,
the game, right? So she's coming from a different
the game,
perspective.
yeah, it's come
Yeah,
totally different perspective, just seeing it
yeah.
fresh. So yeah, but
That
I thought the game was better. You just like
I
you marinate in it.
Yeah, I feel like, and the thing is, like, it's 7 episodes, and
Hmm.
I think they could have done a better job with more episodes and just flesh out some of these scenes a little bit more.
Yeah,
There was definitely things that they skipped. They could have added and made it a longer
I agree.
season, and
You,
it just felt rushed. I don't know. It just didn't feel as satisfying as the first season because of these 7 episodes. I think they could have had 8. Could have had 9. You
yeah,
know,
I agree.
it's
I
the
think
HBO. They could have done it
yeah.
easily.
Easily. I mean, they like
Yeah,
Pedro and everyone, like they totally could have had
yeah,
had this a little longer
yeah.
and just had us kind of enjoy it a little bit longer. You could still end at the same point, right?
Right.
Exactly, like end the same exact way, but
Yeah.
add some more content
Yeah.
in between.
Episode 6, I do think there's a lot of things I liked about it. So this is the birthday episode, and it's the
The
flashbacks.
flashback, yeah.
But in the game, you flash back to Ellie's birthdays. But in
Hmm.
this one, you actually start with Joel, and you see this scene where Joel is talking to his brother, and he's like, his brother got caught selling, I think like buying drugs, and he's like,
Hmm.
his dad's gonna beat him. He's like, no, he's not. I'm gonna take the blame. I'll take the beating. And his dad comes in, and his dad's like, doesn't fall for it. He's like, no, I know you're taking the blame for Tommy. And he sits with them, and he's like, you're not gonna hit him. And then he goes into a story about like how his father broke his jaw because he stole, I forgot what he said, like a bubble gum or something silly.
Hmm.
Uh, and he had to get his jaw wired shut, and everyone knew why he got wired shut, right? So he's talking about how he's come from this place where his dad did this, and he's like, I'm not that bad. And he's like, when you're a parent, you're, you're at that point, you're like, you have to do a little better than your parents did.
Yeah,
And I thought that was really interesting. Like, I thought we were going to get a stereotypical angry guy, and he was going to beat Joel, and it was like, hey,
I
Joel's
know.
always been a protector. But he
Yeah,
actually had this like very nuanced conversation with
vulnerable
Joel,
moment too. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he's like, at this point, like, he's like, yeah, he's a teenager, but I'm going to treat you and have an adult conversation with him. And you kind of felt for bad for, like, he was like, maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe it's not. But hopefully when you have one, you'll do a little better than me. And this scene was really, really good. And then you see him put his shoulder on Joel, put his hand on Joel's shoulder, and you see the watch. And then you're like,
Oh, I didn't see
damn,
that.
it
Damn.
was his dad's watch the whole time. That's the
Wow.
one Sarah got fixed and brought to him. And I was just like,
I didn't know that. I totally missed that one. It's a
yeah,
really good catch. Like I actually love that scene. I thought it was a really good way to
yeah.
start the episode.
It's actually a very nuanced conversation because like it goes into the conversation of like what is abuse and what is
Yeah,
discipline. And
yeah,
like it also has to factor in like cultures too, right? There's some
totally.
cultures that view it one way and some cultures that view it another way. Some cultures that maybe are just behind other cultures,
Yeah,
right? Like it's just one of those things where like people are like, this generation is ruined because they didn't get disciplined enough, and there's other people saying like, no, that's a bad mindset to have. Like, just because your parents uh treated you a certain way and you think you turned out okay doesn't give you the okay to, hit your kids and stuff like that. And I think that's a very nuanced conversation that the show kind of dived into, but doesn't like linger too long. It
hmm,
lingers just enough where you can like think about it, but doesn't
totally.
linger long enough where you're like, oh, this is the main point of this episode. It was more
Yeah,
about, hey, you have to do better when it's your turn, right? And I think that's really interesting. And you
yeah.
see why Joel is so protective.
Oh
And,
yeah.
there's something he does better, and then there's something he does not. I think that's really interesting. Someone in the comments says, I wonder why it's only 7 episodes. Finale felt rushed, but very still good. Yeah, I agree. Seven is just also 7 is a very random number. I've never seen a show do.
Yeah.
I've seen shows do 6. I've seen
6,
them do 9. I've seen them do 12. I've seen them do
9,
10.
yeah,
Never seen a show do 7. It was really weird.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I thought so as
but yeah,
well.
what are your thoughts about the scene with the dad? Other than
I I really liked it. I love Tony Dalton. I think he's a
oh, so
great
good,
actor.
so good.
I love him as swordsman. I love him in
Perfect.
Narcos. I love him
Narcos,
in basically anything he's in. He's always incredible. Oh, I mean, not what is it? Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul. Yeah, you're
Basically
right.
anything he's in, he's always so good. He brings this like
Yeah,
this amazing personality. Um,
yeah,
it was a good scene, and I reflected also on my own parenting
yeah,
experience, and just how we are always trying to constantly do a better job and
yeah.
take the best from our parents, right? I think,
Hmm.
my wife and I grew up very differently. You and, your spouse and everyone, like your siblings, everyone, they all grow up differently, even if you're in the
Yeah,
same household. And you somehow have to take whatever good things from your parents and
yeah,
replicate it, expand on it, improve upon it,
yeah,
recognize the bad things, recognize the bad traits, and try to break
yeah.
cycles. And I think my
Yeah,
wife reminds me that our generation, millennials especially, are trying to break uh, generational trauma in so many ways.
Generational, yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I just think it's really thin. But I think like everybody has their own level of like where they fit into that discipline,
Hmm.
like like ladder, right? And
Yeah.
it's really, really interesting.
And
Um
some people really love their sandals and seeing how far they go. I'm just kidding.
Listen, listen. Some people just have general aim. If the zombie apocalypse was sensitive to sandals being thrown at them, like
Oh
every
yeah,
Arab
aunties would
and
be like
auntie
solid. Yeah,
in the South Asian diaspora would
yeah.
be in the front lines.
They would be like running the world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just sandals. Just woof, woof.
yeah.
All right, so now we get to Ellie's birthdays, and we get to see the ones where like in the game you get a few, but you don't get that many.
True.
Uh, you actually get to see ones where like Joel is like making this birthday cake, and the first one is vanilla, and he gets his name wrong. Second one is chocolate, and he gets the name right. Slowly, you could see there's like distance growing between them, and in the game, you find out that like Ellie always suspects what happened with the fireflies, and then
Mm,
she finds this like tape recorder, and she listens to the tape recorder, and she finds out everything that happened. In this, she just like questions itself over and over again.
mm,
She writes it down in a
mm,
notebook, and then she just questions herself. And we kind of just get this idea of like, hey, slowly she gets like more and more like against Joel to the point where she has this girl named Kat in her room, and she's doing her tattoos and stuff like that, and she gets into a fight with him like a typical teenager, which is really interesting because in the game they do mention Kat at the very beginning
mhm.
because she talks about uh, Dina and Jesse. She goes like, oh, how do you feel about Kat? She's like, yeah, she's like whatever. I think she's a good artist. And you realize in this show that Kat was like somebody she had like a thing with, right? So they do mention
Yeah,
Kat in the game, but you don't really realize who she is to her
yeah.
until you see the scene, which I think is really interesting. Um, so I thought that was cool, and then they go into the dinosaur museum, and that was
Mhm.
like right from the game.
I
Like that,
loved it.
the
So
scene
great.
in the game was so perfect that they're just like, no, we're just
Mhm.
gonna replicate this like scene by scene, and that's what they did. It's so good, and I really,
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think, Craig Mazin talked, with Neil and basically was like, "Hey, do you wanna see, like, an early scene from the game?" And he showed him that, and that, like, basically is how that whole episode or whole scene made it
yeah,
into the show as well.
yeah. But what wasn't in the game was this whole scene with Eugene, which is really interesting because Eugene's
Yeah,
in the game, but he's
yeah,
not in the game. Like you
he's not
find
in the
out
game.
stories about him as you're picking up
Mhm.
his stuff, you're going into his room, you're reading his letters. Like these are the things you're learning about Eugene, but you don't really know what happens to him.
And
You
he
just
was
know
like
that
a, like,
you just
cabin
know
that's,
Joel
like,
killed him.
away, right, from
Yeah.
the town, right? Something like
Yeah.
that? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So you know Joel killed him, and
Mhm.
his wife is giving him therapy, and you're just like you don't know why. His wife resents Joel for it, and you're like, oh, whatever. So what turned out is that he turned and he got bit by what you call it, an infected, and he says, "Yeah, listen, I know I'm gonna die. You can put handcuffs on me. You can do whatever. Just let me see my wife before I die." Joel wouldn't do it. Joel promised Ellie he would, and then didn't. And Joel made the same face, same voice, same everything when he promised Ellie. And that's when Ellie really broke it down and was like, oh, wow. And then he took him to a like river or a lake, and he's like, if you have any final words, give them to me and I'll pass them along. And he's like, no, I want her final words to me. And I thought that was really interesting. And
That's
I
really
don't know,
touching.
what do you think? You think Joel did the right thing here, or you think Joel didn't do the right thing here?
Hell no, he didn't do the right thing. This was a dumb move on his part,
I
and it bit him in
yeah,
the ass. It bit him in the ass.
it really
Um,
did.
I think, like, he should have respected his wishes.
His wishes, yeah,
You could have, like, still tied him up and brought him back to Jackson, where he could have said
yeah,
farewell, even outside of
yeah,
the, like, perimeter, like,
yeah,
I don't there was no problem with it, so I don't know why he was just this stubborn. Maybe it was because he was in Jackson not long, and so he didn't
yeah,
trust people right? Because he's always been that way.
Yeah,
Um, so I don't know what it was, but it was really a poor choice on his part, and he
yeah.
had suffered the consequences as
I
a
think to
result.
me the issue was that Ellie was on the patrol with him. I think if it was anyone else on the patrol with him, he may have brought them back, but he didn't want to risk Ellie being there and Ellie getting. Well, no, that's not true because Ellie is
No,
immune.
because
That
he's
doesn't even make
immune.
sense.
Yeah,
That was really
yeah,
dumb. That was
yeah.
really.
I don't
God
think
damn
he
it,
was.
Joel.
Yeah, no, Joel.
Yeah.
Disappointed in Joel. Yes,
Oh
agreed.
yeah, comments are like disappointed in Joel. Yeah, Toyin is like, we agree with you, Toyin.
Agreed. Yeah,
We were disappointed in Joel, and then he goes back and he tells her this lie, this elaborated lie, and Ellie just watching him be like, look how this man just gaslights this woman with no remorse, and she's
yeah,
like, hell no, I'm gonna blow up his spot, and he does because like she's all on Joel and hugging him and like like being like in his
yeah.
arms.
Comforting her. Yeah, comforting
Yeah,
her.
he's comforting her, and he's like the one who literally killed him, and he's lying to everything about her. And I'm kind of glad Ellie ratted him out like that.
Yeah, me
Like, yeah,
too.
he did. Like, in a way, he did the right thing, but in a way, he didn't do the right thing. Right. So it's one of the things. Like, he had enough time. He could have said his goodbyes.
I agree.
So
Yeah,
he wasn't wrong in killing him. He was just wrong in like not letting him have his goodbye.
yeah. I
So
think also when he said, "When you love someone, you can always see their face." Like it was a pretty beautiful line, but
yeah,
like yeah, I don't know about whether it was disingenuous or not, but it just was like
yeah,
with what he was doing, his actions didn't match his words.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
The
yes,
lie,
it
yeah. Toy said the lie made it worse. It really did. He should have just been honest and been like, "Hey, listen, this is what I told him, but yeah, I lied to him and not lied to his wife." But yeah,
yeah.
I totally get that. Like Joel had many ways to just make it less worse, and he picked the
Hmm.
absolute worst thing
He
on
picked.
each one to do.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and then at this scene, we have this scene with Ellie and Joel on the porch,
Hmm.
and we kind of in the game you don't get this scene until the very end. This
Literally
scene
the
is
end
like
of the game.
literally the last scene. In here, they're giving us now where she tells him, "You have one chance to tell me everything." And Joel just breaks down and like admits everything. There was a cure. What you call it? There were no other immune people, and she was like, "My life was supposed to have purpose, and now my life doesn't have purpose anymore." Uh, which I kind of agree. Joel doomed everybody in a way. He kind of did.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, it was like that was definitely the best scene in the episode.
yeah,
Um, and I was like, "Wait, they're doing this now? Like, what is
yeah,
going on here?" I was very confused. So, I don't know how they're gonna end the show, because that was such a powerful way to end the game.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know
The
where
the
how they're gonna
only
close this thing.
saving grace that they have with this scene and using it now
Mhm.
is they were able to tie in that line about maybe when you have
I
yours,
agree.
you'll be able to
Yeah,
do a little better than me. And I was
I
like,
agree.
oh, that
It
hit that spot. That was really good.
Yeah, and maybe they want to use this as like have a flashback of the flashback at the
Yeah,
end of the series or
yeah,
end of the second season or third season.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, yeah.
But it makes sense because this scene happened the day of the New Year's Eve party where the
Hmm.
Dina and Ellie have a kiss, and then
Hmm.
Joel does that, and then this whole thing starts off right after that scene, like Joel going to his patrol and all that stuff. So where the audience is thinking the last time Ellie and Joel spoke to each other was that night where
Yeah.
she gets mad at him and she yells at him, but we don't
Hmm.
realize that they had this kind of like reconciliation a little bit because she
Yeah.
tells him, "I may not be able to forgive you, but I want to try."
Yeah.
And this like reconciliation is what really drives her to go and fight for Joel and get his revenge and all that stuff. And which makes a lot of sense when you're playing the game, but also makes a lot of sense when you're watching now because then you're like, oh, this is why she's so hell bent on that. Because it
Yeah.
didn't make any sense. Like you're supposed to hate Joel. You agreed that he did the wrong thing. Why are you out there like killing all these
Yeah,
people for him, but you don't know about how they reconcile.
exactly. Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean, we'll see how. I mean, looks like
Someone says, "Who knows when season 3 comes out?" Yeah. Well,
she also
there's a
like.
problem with that. Season 3 will not come out for 2 years. It's not coming out next year. It's coming out the year after. So we have to wait 2 years, and we're going to see Abby's story. So
I know.
Bella's probably not even going to be in it. Maybe like one or two scenes. And there is talk about her possibly being recasted, which I don't know. Apparently, there's a lot of
What do you mean?
there's a lot of bullying going on in the internet with Bella, who plays Ellie, and she may not come back for season 3 and 4.
I hope that's not the case. I hope.
Yeah,
It's crazy. I mean, the internet's so stupid. But yeah, I think it's just let the show ride out. If the actors are performing at their best and delivering, like I don't see why they can't continue. I mean, she's doing it. Bella's doing an amazing job.
the thing
Um,
is, I don't. Okay, first of all, I think people are just hung up on her looks because they don't
Totally.
find her conventionally attractive,
Yeah,
and that is really. I think the thing is, like, her
pretty gross.
acting isn't
Yeah,
bad because yeah, there are scenes where she comes off like an annoying little kid, but she's supposed to be an annoying kid.
she's supposed to
Like
be. And yeah, and
she's
you're mad
she's
that's
doing
an
a
underage.
great. Yeah,
Yeah,
if
you're
she comes
you're
off
mad
annoying,
that.
she's doing a
Yeah,
great job.
yeah, and then you're mad at like someone who's playing an underage teen not looking
Yeah,
good enough. Like that's pretty gross. I think
yeah.
those people need to look at themselves in the mirror and question a lot of things.
Yeah, like it's really weird, but like also like I'm just like that's the character. Like Ellie is not supposed to be that likable, and you know that when you play as Abby, because then you really, really get to understand why Ellie is a villain in this
Mm,
story. Like
yeah,
she is not the hero that we think she is, and it's one of those things where I think it's really interesting. All right, and in the last episode, it's one of the episodes like we kind of get that even more. So we know that Dina gets this arrow through her leg, and Jesse offers her like an alcoholic drink, and she's like no, and Jesse's like, well, she's someone who's never turned down an alcoholic drink,
a
and
free drink.
yeah, free
Yeah,
drink, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
he's like, and then she's like, she didn't say I don't want to die. She says I can't die. He's like, is she pregnant? And there's just the scene I thought was just so funny
I thought it
where
was great.
when she's like, oh fuck, and he's like, wait, you were guessing?
Yeah, yeah. That's such. I don't know. I feel like that's such an Ellie move. I mean,
Yeah,
like it's like typical in the game, like just
yeah,
personality. So
yeah. And I really actually like Ellie and Jesse's like dynamic. Like they
me
like each
too.
other, they respect each other, but they don't like each other. Also, they're also like
Totally. They're
they're
so
also just
annoyed at each
like
other. Siblings.
annoyed. Yeah, yeah, they're annoyed at each other. They're just like fed
Yeah,
up with each other's bullshit, which I think
yeah.
is so funny.
And they're
And
just
then
like polar opposites.
they really are right,
Yeah,
which kind of makes them have this like mutual respect because Jesse's been like training her and teaching her how to fight
yeah,
for like a couple of seasons now, whatever, or I
yeah,
don't know, a couple of months now, however long they've been in Jackson. So it's one of those things that's like I think it's really interesting that their relationship has like turned in this way, and they both love Dina in a way. So it's like really interesting.
yeah.
Um,
It is.
so they run into this like kid who is being like stripped down by his clothes by the wolves, and like Ellie instinctively wants to help him, and Jesse's like, "Listen, it's just the two of us against all of these people. Like, we're going to die. I just found out I'm a father. I can't die." Oh, poor choice of words, Jesse.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Uh, but it's really interesting. Like Bella, not Bella, but like Ellie makes these like terrible choices and like
Yeah,
instinctual choices, but she doesn't think things through.
yeah.
And Jesse's
Just
like,
like
"No, you
Joel.
can't do this." Yeah, just like Joel. And I find that just really interesting. And like these are the things that make people hate the character. And I'm like, yeah, good. You're supposed to. She's inconsistent. Her morals are ambiguous. She does the wrong thing. Like yeah, that has nothing to do with the actress. That's just how
Yeah,
the character is.
totally.
and maybe when a character is conventionally good looking, you're more willing to forgive their bad mistakes.
Hmm.
But I don't know why that makes a difference.
I
But
know.
then we also see the WLF set up at Costco, which
I love that. That's
I
the
thought
best
that was
scene in the
what
entire show.
I was like, you know what? That's the smartest thing you could do. The smartest thing you can
Totally.
do in a zombie apocalypse is go to Costco. Whoever thought of
Barricade the Costco and just
barricade the Costco? That's what you
yes,
got to
yeah.
do.
That's how you
And then
got
we
to do
see
it.
Isaac talking about, listen, everyone is AWOL. We need to get Abby back. And everyone's like, why do you want Abby back so bad? Are you in love with her? And he's like, no, Abby is a leader. Everyone else is a Manny. Like, poor Manny.
I love that. Poor Manny. That was pretty
uh,
funny.
yeah, but I thought that was really interesting. And since Abby has gone AWOL, he may not be right because he thinks Abby's like resolve is like unbreakable. And in season 3, we'll learn. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We'll find out what happens there. But Jesse and Ellie go up all the way to the top floor, and they hear noises on the radio about some sniper. Now, to me, I think this is a terrible choice in the show because my favorite part in the show is when you're playing against the sniper and you finally get at the end to the sniper and you find out it's Tommy. That was one of
Yeah.
the best parts of the game. I was
It
like, oh
was
my god, it was Tommy the whole time. I was like, I had
yeah.
no idea what was happening. In here,
I agree.
they ruined the sniper is Tommy on the
I
radio,
agree.
and I'm just
I
like,
agree.
why would you do that?
I agree.
Oh,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was that really bothered me, and I was just like, that was one of my favorite scenes in the game because that
Same
sniper
here.
is really hard to beat,
I
and
know.
it takes
And you know
forever to
why?
get to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're like, who is this like final boss that like you can't beat? And you're like, oh, it's actually a main character you didn't know was shooting at you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
I love the interaction with the in the game of the main characters with each other in a way
yeah.
that's like and the show's doing it well in some cases, but in this case they missed it.
Yeah, yeah. And in the game, they do a great job of like Abby like suspecting is him, and Abby figuring out who it might be, and like she's always hearing these things on the radio, like, "Oh, we're going after him," and it's like that must be Tommy. This must be Tommy, and
Yeah,
it's really really interesting how they did that. But I feel like this was cheap, and it kind of ruined it a little bit.
I agree.
One cool thing is though when they're on top of the building and they're looking and they see like the whale and the Ferris wheel and she
I was
figures
like,
out that
"Oh,
Abby's at the
shit."
aquarium.
Yeah.
You also see the bridge that the scars use,
Oh,
which
shit. Oh,
you
I
can
need
see
to
the bridge.
rewatch that.
You can see the bridge in the sky, which is a big thing in season 3. You're gonna find. I don't know how they're gonna do
Oh,
that in season 3, but I'm really.
shit.
But
I
now that we've seen
totally
it,
forgot about that. Yeah.
now that we've seen it, you're like, oh, they're actually going to do that. Now I'm kind of excited for that scene because that's really cool. But here you see Jesse and Ellie arguing, and they go to separate, and Ellie is being like a horrible person, like girl, like you
Be reasonable.
you killed so many of them already.
Mhm.
Let's just call it a day. Dina's pregnant. Let's go back. And she's like, no, I don't want to go get Tommy. Tommy can handle himself. I'm gonna go get Abby. And I was like, again, very poor choice. And another reason why you start to hate this character and you realize how selfish this character is. Uh, Again, has nothing to do with the actress. That's actually Ellie. Does the same exact thing in the game. And Jesse
Mhm.
leaves her. And he says the same thing. I hope you make it. And then they kind of go their separate ways. Um, and then she gets to the wheel. The thing that I didn't like about this, like, yeah, they did the whole boat scene, and I love the way they showed like how Isaac's crew is going to do like a sneak attack on the island during the
Yeah,
storm.
that was pretty dope. That was pretty dope.
That was really dope. But then we also have like Ellie wash up on shore of that Scar
That's
Island.
I hated that scene. That was
Th-
so dumb. I mean, that
yeah,
was
it was.
one of the worst choices for them to just go like kind of have a creative choice in the show that I was like, no, this doesn't work at all. And then you just go have them continue on their way.
and then she
I don't
just
understand.
magically gets on the same boat that just happened to land where she landed on shore, and she goes back. It served no purpose, and it
Yeah,
actually takes away from season 3 because this is something that happens to Abby.
correct.
This is how Abby meets like certain people that like I don't want to spoil,
Yeah,
but Abby meets certain people in this way, and they gave that. I thought for a second I thought they were actually going to give Abby's storyline to Ellie, and I was like going to lose my mind.
yeah,
Luckily they didn't, and it just served no purpose at all. It was just
yeah,
there, and like it just wasted time in a show where you barely had enough time.
yeah.
So
And there's only
what?
7
Yeah,
episodes, so why throw that in there? Like,
that
it
was
would've
so
been
weird.
fine if you, like, maybe have, like, the the
Yeah,
boat capsize or whatever, she get back in, and then she sees the bombs in the distance. That's a
yeah,
different story, but I think, like, for it to go down this way, it's just, like, it really cheapens Abby's story, or, like,
it
it kinda
does.
takes away from Abby's story.
It really does. I didn't love that. I thought that was a poor choice, and I didn't think that they should have done that. Um, yeah, and then yeah, Ellie ends up inside the aquarium,
Yep.
and she sees these rags with bloods in them. Season 3, you'll find out what those rags with blood actually are for. You find out what happens there, so we won't give you guys spoilers. And then
I
she sees
forgot.
Mel and Owen arguing,
Yeah.
and it's so interesting. I love this argument because it makes no sense to you. Because if you have not played the game, and until you watch season 3, which hasn't obviously aired yet, you don't know what they're actually saying because they're actually referencing something that happens, but you don't have any context to it. So it's
Totally.
such it's to watch this scene after knowing the context is actually really cool. And
Yeah.
but you see them arguing, and then what happens is Ellie is like, "Hey, I want you to show me where Abby is on the map." And they're like, "Hey, listen, Owen is talking about going to save Abby. Mel is trying to tell her not to go and do it, and you find out why in season 3. But Ellie overhears this and he's like, "Here's a map. You're going to point to this where she is. Then she's going to point to where she is. And if they do not match, I'm going to kill one of you." Um, and what happens in the game is there's a scuffle,
Mhm.
and she accidentally stabs Mel, and she shoots Owen.
Mhm.
And in here, Owen like kind of just like lunges at her and she shoots them, and it kind of goes through like both of their necks and like through the jugular, and
Yeah.
then you see like the scene right behind the locker. You're like, oh, did she miss? And then you see the blood come out the neck, and you're like, oh damn, she got
Yeah.
her.
Dude,
And for you people who have
play
not
the game?
played the
Oh,
game, when I played this game, I literally threw the controller across the floor because I was like, oh my god, this did not just happen. I
yeah.
like when I played this game, I was like, I did not think that she was pregnant. Like they concealed that so well, and
Yeah.
you're like, holy crap, I just killed a pregnant person, and it was done so well in the game. And I think it was done enough in the game where you're just like, oh my god, this is crazy. I think the show wanted to go
Took it up
even
another
further.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think it needed to go that bad
I
further.
agree.
That was bad. I thought they were actually
Yeah.
going to do it. I because in the show, Mel is like, "Hey, take this knife, take the baby out," and I was like, "Bro, that's not something a non-doctor can do." She's giving her like doctor terms and stuff, and she's like, "No," and I was like, "If they attempt this, that's going too far." Like, I did not want to see that. I don't think I could have handled a random non-doctor trying to do a
C-section? Yeah.
C-section.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
just gross. Uh, but instead, what happens is like she freezes and doesn't do it. Uh, that was rough to watch. I thought the game was bad, but that was even rougher to watch, and to the point where I think they went too far. I don't think we needed that. I think that was a bit much. What are your thoughts?
Oh, totally agree with you. I think it was not needed. It didn't really add much to the story. I think you already
Yeah,
got I think just getting the grays
yeah,
alone, that was actually more gutting than I think the way that Mel died in the game.
yeah,
Because it's like, "Oh, shit," like, that's you shouldn't that's not supposed to go out that way. Like, it was
Yeah.
like completely different.
I
But I think the
also
effect was still felt. You didn't need
yeah.
to, like, and then you could have ended it there.
Yeah.
So
Like in the game, what
yeah,
happens is like she falls and her belly just gets revealed. Whereas this, like
exactly.
she actually like zips up her jacket and tells you to do this. And
Yeah,
I feel like the casual reveal was more of a shocker than like what
yeah,
happened here.
I
Like it
agree.
was I didn't love it. Though in the game it's very evident that Jesse is the I'm sorry, not Jesse. Owen is the father.
Hmm.
In the show, they leave it a little bit more ambiguous. It may not be Owen, is
Mm.
what the woman who plays Mel said. They
Oh,
said it's
crazy.
not guaranteed. She said it's not guaranteed that it's Owen. She's like, we don't know. We won't find out till season 3 who the father is.
Oh, what? Oh, that's crazy. I
Yeah,
didn't know
they
that.
might
Okay.
actually change that, so we don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, but in the
yeah.
game, it is Owen, and she's arguing with Owen for reasons you'll find out in season 3. Uh, but there is a little bit of like a love triangle between the three of them in the game. Um, yeah, and then at this point, Jesse and Tommy come and they take her back, and they're like, "Hey, listen, they were all a part of it." To try to kind of make Ellie be like, I guess not take it too hard and have her actually function. Uh, and then we have the scene where Jesse and Ellie are having this conversation. Jesse's like, "Hey, listen, I know the reason I came back for you is because I know if it was me, you would set the world on fire to get me," which is like true. And it's like one of those things where, like, yeah, Ellie is like this person who's going around doing all these horrible things, but if she was on your side, you would kind of want her on your side. She would set the world on fire
Totally.
to save you. So in a way, she's like right. It's a complicated character. She's not a good person. She's not doing all these good things, but sometimes you need a person like that in your life.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Joel was like,
That's a ride or
right? I
die,
mean,
right? Yeah,
she's literally taken up the mantle of his character.
yeah,
I think in a way that you're seeing it, I don't know, maybe more pronounced in the show than you are in the game. Maybe not. I don't know, but
yeah,
it's been a while since I played the game, but I think like you it's complicated. Exactly. I agree.
yeah. No, for sure. Um, and then they hear some noise and they run out to the outside. And as soon as Jesse opens the door, bam, headshot. Just like in the video game. Like
Yeah, that
literally
was crazy.
before he could
Yep.
even react, it's just
Yep.
lights out. It's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
And then you see Ellie put her gun on the floor, and Abby just looks at her like, we let you live,
Yeah.
and you wasted it. And when you think about it, like Abby is right. Like she let her live. She didn't have to let her live,
Yeah.
and she did. And they came back to kill all these people. And when you think about it, like Abby had every right. Look what Joel did to her father. He was
Yeah.
unarmed. He was a civilian, a doctor who was going to cure the world. Bam. Right. So from Abby's perspective, she is justified. Yeah, maybe she shouldn't have killed him so brutally. Yeah, that's on Abby for
Yeah.
sure. Maybe he shouldn't have made Ellie watch. That's probably hopefully has something to do with it. But it's really interesting because there you have these two characters that have done these horrible things, and they're going head to head right now.
Yep.
And what happens is we just hear this. Well, we see the screen go black and a gunshot. Now in the game, there is no gunshot. We just see the screen
Yeah.
go black. And here's a gunshot. It's kind of like a who done it cliffhanger, which they added. And I kind of don't care about this. I feel like this is dumb. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I thought it kind of worked. But
Really?
yeah, yeah,
Talk
yeah.
to me.
I think it's actually Dina. I think Dina came
Really?
downstairs and shot uh um Abby. So one of the scenes that I love in the theater is when Abby and Ellie go at it in the theater with all the
Yeah, yeah.
statues and whatever, like the um,
Well,
backstage.
yeah, but don't go too much because that's going to be season 3, obviously.
I hope that happens, but
Yeah.
I think yeah, like I don't know, we'll see what happens, but I know it's we're in for like a lot of fisticuffs, that's
So
for sure.
here's my issue with that is that in the game there is a scene right before it goes black that Abby shoots Tommy, and then later on we find out that she just shot him like and it hit his eye and he just lost an eye and he's actually still alive.
That's right. Yeah.
And my thing is, I think the gunshot is still Tommy, and it's like the people who play the game obviously know it's Tommy, and
Yeah, you're
them
probably
doing
right.
it after the thing has no value because obviously she shot Tommy.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think she did shoot Tommy. I know that she hurt him at some point, but I don't remember when, so it must have been in the scene.
Yeah, but who knows? They could change
Yeah.
it. They could be completely
Yeah,
different.
that's true.
It could be they could have switched to Dina,
Yeah.
uh, or somebody else could have shot Abby, or somebody could have shot another character that might be in that room. So we won't know
Yep.
until we find out in 2 years when we see Abby's side, which I thought was really cool because we see the scene where we wake up and it's everything from
Se
Abby's perspective. And instead of
Seattle day
being
1.
Seattle Day 3, it's Seattle Day 1. And now we're going
Yeah.
to see the whole thing from Abby's perspective, which is
Yeah.
going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah. Actually, my wife did not realize that. She was like, "Wait, they've been having that at the bottom of the screen the whole time." But yes, it has been a device every episode. So, yeah,
That's so funny.
it's pretty
Yeah,
funny. Yeah.
it
So,
is cool, but I do think the show did a great job of making it look like the game. Like that stadium
I loved it.
looks like the stadium, and like when
Totally,
they're walking,
100%.
when Jesse
Mhm.
and Ellie are walking through the streets and there's like moss covered everywhere, and
Yeah.
like it looks just like the game. And they go through like the little stores and the bookstore.
Mhm.
It's exactly like the game. Like they
Yeah.
do a like the production crew does a great job with the
And the
sets.
storm scene, like, in the
Yeah,
water and the aquarium, all of it, yes.
yeah. Well, yeah. No, I think they do a great job, and I'm pretty excited to see what they do. But I hate the fact that we have to wait 2 years.
I know.
I wonder if the actress that plays Abby is going to get like really jacked because if you play the video game, Abby is built like a like a
Yeah.
trucker.
Yeah.
She,
Yep,
she
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if we're gonna see that. 2 years is enough time to start working out. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's gonna happen in season 3. But the game doesn't have a part 3. So this season 3, which is Abby's perspective, is still part of part 2 of the game.
Correct.
So if you want, grab the game and you don't have to wait 2 years to find out what happened. You can find out right
It's just fun.
now
Yeah, you just
and
find
just
out.
play the game.
Mhm.
It's a lot of fun. I find it more fun to watch the show and play the game because I feel like it gives you a more immersive experience. Uh, but there's also something that I think the game does better, and it's great to see it through the game. So it's a little bit of both. It's see what you want to do. Because season 1 I played after, and I loved it because it just gave me so much more like context. Uh,
Mhm.
to the game. But like season 2, I played the game first, and now I'm like watching the show, and I'm like, oh, that's what that means. That's what that means. So
Yeah, I like
it's
that. I'll have to
they're
replay and
yeah.
rewatch.
Yeah. It's a fun game to
I love
play. Like
games. They're,
I
like, some of the best
I
ever.
I cannot turn down a game where you shoot at a zombie's head and it explodes. Like
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
can't turn the game like that down. Resident Evil, all of them.
yeah.
But yeah, listen, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. We do all the TV shows that you love. We'll be doing more episodes of Andor. We got 2 more episodes of Andor to do. We wrapped up The Last of Us. We'll be doing probably Ironheart and a few other shows. But definitely let us know if there's a show that you want us to do and we haven't done. Let us know. We want to cover every show that you guys want to do. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. And until next time, guys, Salaam, nerds.
Peace out.